Bum, 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 bum. Hey everybody, come on in. This is sort of a bonus Periscope. My first one got cut short by trolls. We won't let that happen to us again. So the trolls are out hard at me today. But you think they're coming hard at me today? Oh my God, wait till you see what happens by Wednesday afternoon. So I've got something percolating for Wednesday afternoon. So if you think you've seen trolls, you haven't seen anything until Wednesday afternoon. All right. Now you probably know that Devin Nunes wrote a memo about the situation with the FBI and intelligence and FISA warrants and all that. But we can't see it. We can just hear from people who say they read it, but they can't really tell us what's in it. So this was, of course, brutally persuasive stuff from Republicans. So the Republicans had this insanely good play where they had this secret memo that definitely, absolutely has some damning things in it, but we can't tell you. So it might take weeks. You know, we got to go through the channels. It could take weeks, but then we'll definitely tell you. But I can tell you that the people who saw it, it's full of things that are bad. People are going to lose their jobs. Heads will roll. People will go to jail. But we can't tell you what's in it. So imagine being a Democrat and you have to defend this memo that people are inventing in their minds what's in it. So what is brilliant about this approach is that by telling us there is a memo and God, it's bad, it's full of bad stuff, but we can't tell you what's in it. It makes everybody imagine the worst thing they can imagine. It's perfect. This is like Hypnosis Class 101. If you want somebody to imagine something really bad, do you say, that candidate said a bad thing that one time? Or do you say everything that candidate says is dark? Because dark allows you to read into it your worst thoughts. Oh, it's dark. That must mean he's violent, or he's a racist, or he's a sexist. I don't know. It's whatever is the worst thing. I'll think that. So when you give an open-ended situation to people, and you sort of just guide them toward the general area of, well, it's dark. It's dark over here. Can't tell you the details. You'll figure it out yourself. Or there's a secret memo. We can't tell you the details, but just imagine. Just imagine what's in that thing. So the poor Democrats can't respond to a secret memo. Even if the entire thing is full of crap, you're not going to find that out maybe for weeks. And for weeks, the Republicans will be able to own the narrative because they just keep coming out and saying, yeah, that's full of bad stuff, that memo. And by the time it gets debunked, if it does, let's say in a few weeks we find out it's not nearly as bad as it sounds, or it's out of context, or something needs to be clarified. We'll have all that time of thinking it's terrible before potentially, we don't know for sure, but I'm predicting it won't be nearly as bad once we actually dig into it. Right? So this is a trick that the mainstream media taught us all. And you saw some articles about this, very clever. So the media will say, for example, President Trump bit the head off a baby. And then everybody's talking about, oh, he probably bit the heads off of babies all the time. He's a baby head biter. That President Trump bit a head off a baby. And we know it because it was reported in the whatever publication. Yeah, he's a baby head biter. And then a month goes by and, a video is produced or some other evidence comes out and then there's a correction. It's like, oh, yeah, we got that wrong. Did not bite a head off a baby. But the correction comes much later, and it's just one line. Well, yeah, we got that wrong. So the story does all of its damage in our psyches. All of our emotions, the way we just feel about things is completely guided by the wrong story. And then when the correction comes, logically, the correction should make the bad story just go away in our memories. But it can't. The memories are already there. You can't get them out. And so reporting something incorrect and then much later correcting it leaves the incorrect version floating in our heads, and the correction is just sort of lost. The Republicans are playing the same play, unless there's really something bad in that memo. If you've seen my prior periscopes, you know that I assume it's not nearly as bad as it's being made out to be. It could be some stuff you don't like, but I'll bet it's not nearly as bad as you think it is. However, in terms of persuasion, wow, this secret memo is as good as you can get for making people think there's something there, whether there is or not. Now, the Democrats responded in really the only way they could. The Democrats wrote their own secret memo. It was all they had. They had to write their own secret memo to say that the other secret memo wasn't what you think it is, or to put it in context or whatever. Yeah, but it's too little, it's too late, but it's also the only thing they could do. All the other options were taken away because you can't argue about the memo nobody can see. You can only make up your own secret memo. So once I saw that the Democrats had done the best you can do in this situation. So keep in mind, I'm not denigrating the Democrats for their persuasion game. I'm actually saying that under the circumstances, which were pretty tough, this other secret memo, it's all they had. It was the one thing they could do. So they did do the best thing they can do. It just doesn't come close to solving the problem for them. So I decided that I too would write a secret memo on the same topic. For obvious reasons, I can't show you the secret memo because it might reveal my sources and methods. But let me tell you, the people who have seen my secret memo, oh man, they say it's jaw-dropping. It's like the people who have read my secret memo, I can't show it to you, but people you don't know have seen my secret memo. And man, do they say it's going to blow the world up. I mean, it's going to change things. My secret memo will. And don't even try to guess what it is. It may be about, Russian spies working in the government. Maybe. I'm not saying it is, not saying it isn't. Not saying that it's about aliens who came to Earth and replaced the brains of some people working in Congress. I'm not saying that's in my secret memo. I'm not saying that. But the people who read it think it's pretty darn shocking. All right. Gowdy has been running subterfuge all along. No idea what that means. 65 congressmen put their reputation on the line. No, they didn't. If you're saying that 65 politicians looked at the memo and are accurately spinning it, I would say, what was it like being born yesterday? They're politicians. They exaggerate things, they spin things, they bias things, they believe what they want to believe and they ignore what they don't want to believe. So to say that these politicians put their reputations on the line is to not understand what a politician is. They're not really in the game to give us the most accurate view of life. That's sort of not what they do, any more than the news organizations exist to do that. They don't. They exist to give you a biased interpretation. That's I wouldn't say it's their job, but it's sort of their job. Has President Trump tweeted about your memo? No, but he really should. Because my secret memo is way better than the other secret memos. And I say that without even seeing the other secret memos. I just know how good mine is. There's no way there's as good as mine is. How thick is my secret memo? It's thick. Let me tell you. I've heard of their memos. They got a little 4-pager with some backup documents. Pfft, 4 pages. What have the Democrats got? I don't even think they're telling us the size of their document. How can I be impressed by the Democrats' secret memo when I don't even know how many pages it is? This is basic information, people. I can't be expected to be convinced by, let's say, a 3-page memo. That's crazy. 3 pages isn't enough. You need 4 pages. 4 pages, no less. You give me 4 pages of secret memo and I've got an opinion and it's not going to change. Is my memo handwritten? No, it's typed. And double-spaced, but still. So apparently Kim Jong-un, speaking of Kim Jong-un, somebody mentioned him here, he's backing off one of these little confidence measures. So they're getting a little pushback on the friendliness with North Korea and South Korea. But we'll see if that turns into anything. We also saw evidence that the North Korean military drills look like they're going to be less, probably because of trying to save fuel. Say measurement. Why, do I measure things wrong? Do I say that word wrong? All right, so has anybody noticed that the complaints against President Trump have gone from ridiculous, but in a weird way, possibly believable? You know, in other words, when people were saying, "Oh no, we've elected Hitler," it seemed preposterous. It looked that way to me. But you know, anything's possible, I suppose. It just didn't happen to be true. Now we're seeing. There was an article in Vox that I think I tweeted it today, in which people are saying, "Oh yeah, this way that Trump keeps all of our attention on him, even if it's bad news, is actually, I'm paraphrasing, but is actually technique that works really, really well, even though a lot of it is bad news." And so they're acknowledging, for the first time that I've seen them acknowledge it expressly, they don't use the word persuasion, but they're talking about it. And the persuasion is that if he absorbs all of the attention, he's better off than if he didn't, even if a lot of that attention is negative. Now, I've been telling you that for a long time, but it took them a while to come around to that. So among the dumbest things that people say about the president is that he's impulsive. Have you ever heard of a developer, somebody who does big building projects or golf courses, and they're impulsive? That's really almost exactly the opposite of the skill you need to be a developer, because we're talking about multi-year projects with many stages and parts and moving parts. You have to be a really good planner, and you have to think years in advance. We see that the president was thinking years in advance about running for office. We see that many of the things that he said during the campaign, he's backed off on in terms of the specific details and stuff. But I told you that was going to happen 2 years ago. I said he's going to say a lot of extreme stuff, and then he's going to move toward the middle, because that's how you win an election, and it's also and moving toward the middle is how you govern. It was sort of obvious. But if anybody thought that was not planned, I don't know. I can't say you're a serious observer of the world if you think that his brainstem is making all his decisions and his arms and legs are just flailing around and accidentally tweeting things. I don't think you can say you're part of the intelligent conversation if you don't obviously see the long-range planning that is part of his entire life arc. You're really missing a lot. Now, it can be confusing because he also does a lot of A/B testing. He throws out a lot of ideas just to see how they track. Here's an idea. Hey, Aide, what if we fire this guy? What if we do this? What if we use a nuclear weapon? That doesn't mean he seriously wants to do any of those things. He's just testing all of his boundaries, finding out what tools he has to work with, finding out how people answer the question, learning what, the common view of things is, just to make sure he knows what it is, even if he doesn't follow it. Will McMasters resign next? I don't know why you would say he would. Yeah, McCabe is gone, but am I wrong that he had said he was going to retire? Isn't this just the retirement he said he was going to do? I don't know that there's any new news about McCabe except that there's a specific date, which is about when he said it would happen. Forced down? Oh, he was going to retire in March but left now. That still doesn't mean anything because the long-term employees often have a lot of sick leave left over. He could negotiate with his boss to leave early if he thought it was good for everybody, maybe with pay, maybe without. But it's essentially just his retirement, and probably there were more than one reason for retiring. Usually there is. Ray saw the memo yesterday. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it certainly is possible that he got forced down a little early, several weeks early. I don't know that it makes a big difference. I mean, people are not terribly effective in their last months of work. So I think it could be true that he was removed without it being false that it was essentially just his time to retire. It's very common if somebody says, I quit, I'll be gone in 2 weeks, that they say, grab your shit and get out of here. So the most common thing that happens in business, especially at the high level, is if somebody says they're going to quit in a month, you say, well, how about today? Put your stuff in the box, we'll have security escort you out. So when you hear the two stories that McCabe just was going to retire about that anyway and seemed like a good time and he wasn't enjoying his job so much because of all the stuff swirling around, and you also hear that he was forced out, those can both be true. Because the force out is just like, well, why wait a month and a half? Nothing good is going to happen in a month and a half for any of us. How about we just agree you go now? We'll call it a retirement. You get your pension. It's just better for all of us if we do it right away. McCabe is a leaker, someone says. I don't know. Nobody knows who's leaking. Will you ever retire, Scott? You look like you're 20. Well, I don't look like I'm 20, but thank you. And, I didn't plan my current incarnation. I did not expect that I would be periscoping about Trump's persuasion if you had asked me 5 years ago. So when you ask me when am I going to retire, I have to give you the same answer, which is I'm not really good at knowing what I'm going to do next year. If I keep enjoying it, I'm going to keep doing it. Andy was in the text messages, yeah. We're not going to know a lot about McCabe, why he did what he did. I've got a feeling that there'll just be lots of speculation about that, and we'll never really know the full story. Did I know Mort Walker, famous cartoonist who died this week? I did, yes. I'd met him several times, talked to him several times, and it's a big loss in the comics world. It's a small world, but in our world, he was a huge figure, and people are going to miss him. So I was watching you probably all saw the part of the Grammys, even if you didn't see the Grammys themselves. They did a comedy bit where they had people reading from the Fire and Fury book, and then the punchline was that Hillary Clinton was the last person to read. And here's the thing, that book was so thoroughly discredited in terms of its accuracy. The fact that they would run that as though, without a recognition that it was dubious, just acting like, well, here's a book full of facts, isn't it funny, we're all reading from it. It just looked embarrassing. It was like the people who were involved with the Grammys don't follow the news or something. Because, they could have, that bit would have worked if they had at least acknowledged that the book is highly dubious on its details. All right. Had they somehow acknowledged that, then I would say, oh, okay, this is just for fun. But when you present it without that context, as if this book is accurate, and then you have all these people read it, including the almost president of the United States, Hillary Clinton, you're sending a political message based on bullshit. And you're doing it like you're proud of it. Did you see the people involved? They seemed pretty proud of what they were doing. And it really just said you're living in a silo and you haven't been paying attention to what this book is about and how discredited it is. Because whoever, I feel sorry for the artists who got talked into doing that. Now, I'm sure that they thought, I don't like Trump, I'm happy to do this. But they also got talked into something that's going to take their own, musical audience down by 20%. So probably every person who was part of that bit, I'm guessing they'll take a 20% hit on their business for nothing. Because the reason they're taking a hit is not even their opinion. It's about being wrong, that they would give credibility to this horribly undependable account of events. Let me say something else that has nothing to do with anything, I just thought of it. I've said before that Hillary Clinton was trying to break the ultimate glass ceiling to become the first woman president of the United States. Now, some people say that because she didn't get elected, she did not break the glass ceiling. I disagree with that vigorously. So for all of whatever faults you would like to attribute to her, she did break the glass ceiling. She just didn't get the job. And what I mean by that is far more people voted for her gender than against it. So she said, I've heard her say that sexism was at least part of the reason she didn't win. There's definitely sexism in the world, and some people, I'm sure, it was a big country with lots of voters, I'm sure some people said, I don't want a woman in charge. I never heard a single person say that. The entire process, I personally never heard one person say that. Not a serious person. It might have been like funny tweets or something. But probably by a ratio of maybe 10 to 1, just a guess, people voted for her gender whereas maybe 1 in 10 voted against it. So on net, it was probably outrageously positive. But here's the interesting thing. If you doubt my claim that she did break the glass ceiling, she just didn't get the job, which you could separate, right? Because the next person who runs for president and is a woman and is also qualified, that conversation isn't even going to happen. Nobody's going to say, well, there's a woman running for president. I don't think a woman can get elected. That's history. Whatever you think of Hillary Clinton, she did break the glass ceiling. It's not there anymore. It's not going to stop anybody, right? They just have to have, the skill to get elected. Case in point, Oprah Winfrey. When Oprah's name rose yet again as someone who could run for president, immediately and universally, people said, yeah, she could get the job. The only thing that would stop Oprah from becoming elected president, well, there are two things that could stop Oprah from being president. One is running against Trump. That's not going to work. Yeah, she could run against anyone else and win. And I know the polls show that she might even beat Trump, but that's before he gets before he gets a bite on her. They may be friendly, but he would eviscerate her in that kind of a contest. Now, keep in mind that one of the things that Oprah has done, not just for herself and for the company that employs lots of people and also for her audience, but for the entire black community. Here's what Oprah did for all of us. I shouldn't say just the black community, but they might be benefited the most in this context. What Oprah did was to develop possibly the best public reputation anyone ever had. Black, white, pink, blue. Nobody's ever, I don't believe anybody's ever developed a full, sort of comprehensive, multi-decade public persona that is so universally respected. Yes, people, there's always going to be somebody who's a critic. But man, she nailed it. She has the best reputation you could ever have. And so you can't discount how important that is to our overall sense of, racial everything, right? Now imagine if she ran for president. Her solid gold reputation would be chopped in half at least. All right. So the people who are Democrats, let's say she ran as a Democrat, probably would. They're still going to like her, and they're not going to believe the dings against her that come out in the race. But on the right, people are going to believe it, and they're going to think that she's a horrible person by the time she was done with the political race. So she would take one of the greatest assets ever created, which is brand Oprah. Just one of the greatest brands of all time. And she would ruin it, right? By ruining it, I mean half of it would be ruined because half of the country would dislike her quite a bit, and it would affect what products they purchased. So when I said Oprah won't run for president because she's too smart, I do mean that as a compliment. Because if she ran, she'd have a good chance of winning against anybody but Trump. So if she waited, 4 years, I think she could just walk into the job if she wanted to. But I don't think she's dumb enough to want to. But here's the interesting thing. Was there any point in which we were talking about Oprah running for president in which any serious person said, well, she'll never get elected because she's a woman? Didn't hear it. She'll never get elected because she's black. Well, Obama took care of that, right? Nobody's going to say that again. Can't get elected because you're black. You don't ever have to have that conversation again. But I would argue that Hillary Clinton so thoroughly destroyed the glass ceiling, albeit without getting the job. She did get the most votes, You can't take that away from her, even though that's not what it takes to get elected. She got the most votes. And you can see how quickly that impact of Hillary's example, if you will, rippled through our consciousness, through society. Because when we started talking about Oprah, her gender and her ethnicity were never part of the conversation. Think about that. Just think about what a big frickin' deal that is. You know, in this country that's trying to heal from, you know, legitimate racial, issues, many of them made worse by President Trump. Love him if you will, but you can't argue that his existence has worsened racial feelings, at least. Even in that context, when Oprah's name comes up, 0 people out of 350 million, or however many were looking at the situation, 0 of them said, well, she's a woman, she can't become president. None. 0. There is no glass ceiling. Hillary Clinton did that for you. All right. So hate her as much as you want for policies and anything else you want, right? But don't take that away from her, because that was a big frickin' deal. And she owns that. So, give her that. All right, I'm just looking at your comments. Oh yeah, I've updated the Persuasion reading list. Check my blog. Go to dilbert.com and click the blog button. And I think it's the latest post. So I tightened up my list. So this is the list of books you could read to learn how to be more persuasive in general. What's Tom Steyer up to? Well, I heard that Tom Steyer, he's the guy who was funding the impeachment campaign for Trump, he decided he would not donate to Democrats. He would stop being a big donor. I can't think of someone who should be more embarrassed right now than Tom Steyer. Give me some suggestions. Who should be more embarrassed than Tom Steyer? Like in any realm. Give me the name of any person on earth, for whatever reason. Should be Eminem. Oh, Bill Cosby. Jay-Z. I don't think Jay-Z is embarrassed. Bill Kristol. Yeah, I think Bill Kristol doesn't need to be embarrassed. You can just be wrong. And you can be wrong a lot. But, it's politics. People are predicting things, they're taking sides. A lot of people, no matter what you do, half of the country is going to be wrong at least. So just being wrong doesn't seem to be enough to make you embarrassed. Well, it turns out there's a lot of people who need to be embarrassed. All right. So not counting the not counting the Me Too people who need to be embarrassed, of course. I would think that Tom Steyer should be the most embarrassed in the entire country, because he spent so much money working against the president who's brought the economy to its best point, unemployment to its best point, ISIS to its best point, etc. Now, by the way, I'm aware that when I say all these good things happened, that everybody in the left says, oh my God, you're giving all the credit. This should have been Obama's. Obama created this good economy. Here's the best response to that, because I know you're all getting the same thing. Does anybody want the best response when you say President Trump is good for the economy and you list all the reasons that the economy is good, and then the other side says, well, that's Obama. He just inherited a good economy. Here is the persuasive answer. I'll give you the long version and then the short version. The long version is that you need the right president for the right situation. And the situation changes. So the right personality could be in the wrong time and not be effective. I would argue that when President Obama came into office, the economy was on looking off the edge of a cliff. People were frightened for good reasons. It looked like the whole world was going to fall apart. In that situation, where you're literally afraid that tomorrow the entire civilization will go to hell, do you want a President Trump? As much as you love him, and I know a lot of you do, I would argue not the right president for that situation. For a 2008 situation, 2009, when the economy is going off the cliff, you want the voice that even the critics say, well, at least he's a lawyer, he's looking at the details, he's talking to the experts, he's saying calming things, he's not making any gaffes, he's not causing trouble, he's concentrating on this job. So I would say that Obama was really kind of a perfect president for that time. Now, you could say he did other things wrong, and I'm not going to argue about that, but I'm just talking about the economics. Then you get to a point where the economy has recovered quite a bit. This is what Democrats will tell you. And if you look at any of the charts, it's pretty clear that Obama took us from a deep hole to a gradual, but you wish it was faster, improvement. So he created a strong base that he handed off to President Trump. Now, I give President Obama, and this would apply to any last president when you have a new one in the first year, the prior president is going to be 75% of whatever's happening in the first year of the new presidency. So if you say, no, it's all Trump, that is not persuasive. It's also not true. And it's so obviously not true that it can't be persuasive. So you need to pace your audience a little bit. So you need to agree with them on the things you agree on before you disagree with them on something else. All right. First, you say something that's agreeable. And what I usually say is that in the first year of the Trump presidency, I give Obama 75% of the credit for he really turned a very bad situation. The economy did it, but he was the steward at the time. A very bad situation into a strong base that was slowly improving. But now here's the next question. If you've got an economy that is basically in good shape, but it could be a lot better, right? There's no real risk that we're going to have a depression next year, but we could do a lot better. What's the perfect personality for that situation as president? President Trump. He is the perfect president for 2018, 2017 as well. Because we had an economy that was basically in place. All the parts were there. It was chugging along pretty well. But what it didn't have is that extra juice. It didn't have the energy. It didn't have the optimism. It didn't have the cheerleader. It didn't have the active persuasion where he goes and says, I'm bringing... I talked to this company, I'm over in Asia, and I made a deal to buy some more military equipment and airplanes. These guys are moving back to this country. Hey, I'm going to give credit to Carrier and Ford. Forget about all the details. Collectively, this stuff is what brought the small business confidence level to its highest level, I think, ever. And when you have high consumer confidence, it of course has an impact on hiring, because you're hiring to get ready for this good year is coming right away. So that's the long version. The quick answer is this. When you say Trump's good for the economy, the Democrat says, that's all Obama. It's Obama's economy. You say 75% of it is, if you're talking about the first year. 25% is doing the stuff that Obama couldn't do, or he was just the wrong personality for it. He wasn't a cheerleader. He wasn't a persuader, at least in an economic sense. And that's what the current president, has added on top of it. So in 2018 and beyond, that 75% that I give to Obama decreases. By the end, it's more like 75-25 the other direction. What are the percentages for the second year? It's closer to 50-50. Obviously these are not statistical, scientifically determined numbers. But in terms of making your point, if you acknowledge that Obama gave us a strong base, then you're in much better shape to convince somebody that President Trump and his specific way of leading, his optimism, his persuasion, and his cutting of regulations and cutting taxes and all those things are all part of the collective psychology of the economy. So we had two presidents who were exactly the right presidents for the time in which they served. You've had President Obama, calm, collected, looks at all the details, great in a financial emergency when the biggest problem is you're worried. If you just stop worrying, things will fix themselves. So Obama helped us stop worrying and things fixed themselves. Now you need a little extra juice, you need a little pizzazz, you need a little cheerleading, you need a little optimism, you need a little drive, a little more. You just need more. Obama didn't have that. He wasn't the right personality for that. But Trump, he brings the full package. Did Farrakhan influence Obama? I'm not on the train of if you had your picture taken with somebody, then you're a bad person. If you tweeted somebody's, who has a bad reputation, you don't really acquire the reputation of the people you tweeted. And I would say this, whether it's Obama or Trump or anybody else you're talking about, I'm just not too interested in who they had a picture with. I just don't think that's important, right? So why hide it? Well, you would hide it because it could be turned into something much different than it is. So you don't want to give your enemies easy ammunition. But at the same time, and because I might be the only person in the country who says it doesn't matter, get your picture taken with people, it doesn't matter. Now, part of the reason I say this is if I ran for president tomorrow, you would find a lot of people I took pictures with that, I can't think of any specific ones at the moment, but I'm pretty sure you'd find all kinds of pictures of me posing with my book at a book signing, at some speech I gave, in some public place, with somebody terrible, right? I can't think of who it would be right offhand, but you could guarantee that those would pop up. No, I don't have any pictures with David Duke, in case you're wondering. You weren't a senator. I just don't know that matters. See, the thing is, if you're a senator or you're president or you're any kind of politician, you're still the politician of all the people. And I'm just not terribly keen on the idea that you can't communicate with them, have your picture taken, be a citizen, eat in the same restaurant. I just don't think that's where we should be spending our time worrying about stuff. Now, in my specific case, people often try to brand me by association. So people will say to me, somebody mentioned Alex Jones. So somebody will say to me, hey, you went on Alex Jones, so therefore the people who don't like him can not like me as well. Or Mike Cernovich, another provocative character. Mike's a great guy. I have enjoyed every communication I've had with him. I don't agree with maybe some things he says, but I don't need to. If I had to agree with everybody, I wouldn't ever talk to anybody. So here's the thing. In my specific case, since my thing is persuasion, and that I'm a certain age, meaning that the odds of me turning into a different person now are pretty low. If you put me with anybody you don't like, what would be the net effect of that? Is the net effect that the person you don't like is going to influence me to be more like them and adopt their bad attitudes? Or is my association with somebody you don't like likely to change how they think? What do you think is more likely? So when I spend time with somebody you don't like, because you don't like their opinions or whatever, you should assume that they're getting better. Because I don't think I have any objectionable points of view. I can't think of any. I don't have any provocative points of view. I'm pretty middle of the road. Socially, I'm ultra liberal, but the country has moved that direction as well. There aren't too many things that are illegal that I think need to be legal in any practical way. Are there any plans for a Sam Harris rematch? No, but no plans. No. I feel like for Sam and I to talk again, we need to let this Trump presidency play out a little bit. It feels like it would be premature. Let me make another prediction for you. So you know that I've been predicting that we're entering a golden age, and I'm going to put something specific on that. It's in the form of an if. All right. So this is more wishful thinking than prediction. But I'll put it in the form of an if this happens, then that will happen. If by the end of 2018, we're talking about a Nobel Prize, a peace prize, for President Trump because of North Korea, and this would assume that they're getting flexible about reducing or getting rid of their nukes. If we're having that conversation at the end of 2018, that's the golden age. So the golden age, I'm going to say the point where everybody agrees it's a golden age as opposed to me saying it and saying it's going to happen. When the conversation starts from, let's say, a major publication, and in this sense, it could be anything from, New York Times to CNN to MSNBC. So some major organization writes an article that says something like this: oh my God, the way things are developing, President Trump is a legitimate contender for the Nobel Peace Prize. If we're having that conversation toward the end or even the middle of 2018, I think it'd be more like the end. If we're having that conversation, that's your golden age. And I think we might. And the way I define the golden age is a time in which just everything is trending good, or trending in the right direction. So things don't have to be good, they just have to be trending in the right direction. All right, so I'm looking at your messages. I think I'm going to sign off now. We've done plenty. I can't believe this was 48 minutes. It just does not seem, it feels like the time just flies. Let me give you an update on my startup, WenHub. We're building this app called the Interface app. It'll be crypto native in the sense that you're going to need a crypto wallet to use it, but that's just 30 seconds on a website. You just sign up and you've got your crypto wallet. It doesn't cost you anything. You should have one anyway, because it is 2018. Get a crypto wallet, damn it. You need one. So the expert app will allow you to find an expert who is available at that moment, who will take a call of whatever length they're willing to take, and charge you for direct FaceTime-like advice. Our plan is that I should see version 1 this week, by the end of the week. So that'll be the pre-App Store version, just to debug it. We'll play with it a little bit, and then we'll put it out. I have personally needed the following experts this week. So these are times I would have used my own app. I would have paid real money to talk to a real expert for less than an hour, probably 30 minutes. I would have talked to an expert about buying a complete indoor grow kit for cannabis. I had some questions because you can see a lot of them online, but they all have trade-offs. Some have charcoal filters. Some they look like they're big enough, but they might not be. They're different heights. So there are a million questions that if you just went to someone who is an expert on this, They just say, let me shortcut this for you. You need this, this, and this. Here are the 3 brands you can consider. I'll send you a link. You're good. So would I spend $100 for that advice? Yeah, totally. Because I would get the right answer and I wouldn't spend, days researching it myself. And you can't Google a question like that because you end up seeing just advertisements and infinite detail. You need a person who's done it to tell you what to do. The other one was, most of you know I've got a Patreon account. Now you can just search for Scott Adams Says, the same name I use for Twitter and for Periscope, over at Patreon. So just go to Patreon and search for my name and you'll see me. And I'm using that to fund extending these Periscopes. And I'm extending them in particular to podcasts. I'm working on that now. But if I could have just talked to an expert to say, all right, you already know how to do podcasts. You know all the ways that you grab the audio, massage it, and publish it on various platforms. I just need an hour. Just tell me what I should do so I don't have to research everything everything from the beginning. I would have paid $100 for that. So I would have used my own product twice for those things, and I think there were like 3 other examples I would have used it. I would have used it maybe even for like vacation planning. If somebody was let's say somebody was just an expert on Hawaii vacations or something like that. So there's a lot of stuff I would have used it for. Anyway, you should hear about that more in a few weeks. I'll be testing the first prototype in a week or so, and I'll talk to all of you.